Hey there, this is Dennis Anyone with Dennis Hensley. It's a podcast about making things up and making things happen. I love talking to creative people. I think they're saving the world, or they're trying anyway. And today my guest is a playwright, Gabe Rivas Gomez. He has a wonderful play playing now in Los Angeles called Level Up. It's at the Latino Theater Company, which is in the LATC complex downtown. It was pitched to me when I got the invitation to go see it. It felt it was for all ages, or for young people as well as adults, and I thought I was going into like a children's theater thing. It was so deep and profound. It was so moving to me. I cried through much of it, and so I was really excited to talk to Gabe. The story's about a trans girl, and she's trying to fit in her family, in her community. Like she's struggling. She's a tween, and she knows who she is, but the world doesn't quite get it. And so she has this video game that she goes into and tries to work out things there. So it takes place in these two different worlds, and it's beautifully executed, beautifully written, beautifully performed. I was so into it. So I love this conversation with Gabe. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that this podcast is brought to you by me pretty much. I make a little bit of money on it, but not much. But if you want to support what I do, help me cover my expenses and things like that, there are a few things you can do. You can go to DennisAnyone.net. Leave a tip in my virtual tip jar. I appreciate it. You can also become a subscriber to DNR Studios. They're a group of shows, mostly queer shows. And for a monthly fee, you get my show early, and you get all these other great shows. So learn about that at dnrstudios.com. I also have a spin-off podcast called Dennis Hensley's Happy and Gay on Patreon and Substack. You can subscribe to that. Normally it's $5 a month, but because I've got this full-time job now and I'm posting less frequently there, I'm making it free for everybody. So go check that out. It's the same content on both sites. Dennis Hensley's Happy and Gay on Patreon and Substack. All right, that's it for the plugs. Here now is my interview with Gabe Rivas Gomez. Joining me now from beautiful Pasadena, California, it's Gabe Rivas Gomez. He's the playwright of the new show Level Up, which I saw and loved, and I'm excited to have this conversation. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so when I was first told about the show, I sort of read about it, and I thought, oh, this is going to feel like children's theater, or like it was for all ages or whatever. I was crying from 5 minutes in. I thought it was going to be like Peter Pan goes to. I was like, oh shit, I'm wrecked. 5 minutes in, and I didn't stop crying the whole show, which is a compliment. So congratulations. It does appeal to a wide range of ages and stuff, but it is about serious things, and it's told in a fun way, but it is not like Peter Pan puppet show, kid time show. It's so grounded. So I guess my first question for you is, how are young people reacting? Because there's big issues in this show, like grief. There's a dog that's on its last legs. There's big things. So I'm wondering how young people are reacting when you see them in the audience or talk to them afterwards.
We just had actually this morning our first student matinee, and we had over 300 students from local high schools. So this was actually... I love
that you're doing that. As I was watching it, I was like, young people need to see this show. I'm so glad that there's that program where you're bringing them in.
So this was actually the first time that I have seen such a large group of young people see the show. And they reacted really strongly. I mean, some of the moments I think everybody responds to. I mean, I think the ending of the play, I think the notion of having the sick dog, I think appeals regardless of generation. But there were some of the other moments that landed better with a younger generation, and some other moments, some of the 90s music and some of the, I think some of the perspective of the older characters in particular lands better with an older generation.
Sure.
But I think a younger generation immediately sees themselves a lot in the two younger characters in the play specifically. And there's a 6-7 moment in the play, and they lost their minds with that today. They had a lot of fun with that. they were on board. And I mean, if you were there for opening, that was a crowd that had a ton of energy. And I think they had more energy today, to be honest. It
Fantastic.
was kind of incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there for opening, and it was everyone was excited to be there and all of that stuff. Were the young people, were any of them moved to tears? Am I
Yes.
the only one that's
No, a lot of them were. In fact, I had a little girl come up after the show, and she wanted to talk to me, and she was saying, did you write this? And I said, yes. And she was really nervous, and she was having some trouble getting the words out. And I said, take your time. It's okay. I'm happy to wait. And she finally said, she said, I lost my dog a couple weeks ago. And she was like,
wow.
So kind of what you're saying. She was like, 5 minutes into this play, I was crying and I didn't stop. And
right.
She's like, but I kind of needed it. I think that this helped me process. So she was thankful for the journey and kind of needed a hug and was happy to be there. But yes, they were really emotionally moved. Without giving too much away, as we get towards things in like the latter part of the play start to land a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
And you started hearing more gasps and more sniffles and things like that as we moved to the end.
Yeah. I want to talk to you.
They were definitely emotionally on board. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk to you more about this topic, but first let's tell the listeners a little bit about what's it about. How do you describe the story to somebody that knows nothing about it?
Level Up is a story of a trans tween who does not feel like she can be out to her family and can only be her true self in her virtual world. And at the top of the play gets word that her dog and best friend is dying. And there's nothing she can do about it in the real world, but in the virtual world she can. And so she goes on one last adventure to try to save her dog. And in going on this adventure, I think learns quite a bit about her family and learns what she might need to do to survive in both the real and virtual worlds.
Right. And it's, there's a parent that is lost, has already been passed away at the beginning of the play. Like there's a lot of people dealing with a lot of grown up things.
Yes.
What's it like to get the teachers in there and to bring the students? Is that an easy process for you guys? Are teachers excited to bring young people? How does it work? Because this has become such a hot button topic in our culture.
You mean like the nuts and bolts of getting them into the theater,
right,
or like the response?
The response. Like, are people excited to bring classes? Are they worried that
yes.
In
fact, I had multiple teachers come up after the performance today and say that they had already texted 10 colleagues and said that they need to bring their students as well. One of the teachers teaches theater, and he said, he's like, I've been looking for something to kind of touch on some of these topics with my students, and this does it, and it does it in a way that I think is really connecting with them. And so he was really eager. He actually wanted to know if he could use the script in his class.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And so I'm so glad to hear it. I'm so heartened to hear it.
Yeah.
Also, I sometimes cry at theater, especially musicals, when just the theatricality is so beautiful. And I had that experience with your show because the special effect, it's almost like too much. And even when it's not sad, I find it so moving. Theater generally, I guess. But you've got this whole video game world going on.
Yes.
And it's beautifully depicted. Talk a little bit about how you did it with the projections, how you collaborated with the director and the production people to pull this off. What were the steps?
That's a really good question. And I'll start by saying we've been really fortunate to have a group of designers and a director in Fidel who are as talented as they are eager to kind of figure out the challenges. Because when I was first pitching this, I did start to hear, some people saying, I don't know that we can get a video game on stage. I don't know that we can do it. And it was really important to me that we land this in hands of people who said, I can't wait to figure out how to do this.
Right.
Because there's no shortage of challenges in this play, from projections to lighting to costumes. I mean, all of it. And they did a fantastic job. Fidel Gomez, who's the director on the project, has been part of this project since we've been workshopping it. We've workshopped it twice in Minneapolis, one in Atlanta, and once in LA. And from very early on, he said he wanted to start thinking about the design for this show, less in terms of traditional set and more in terms of interface. And this was something that he pitched to the designers, and they were on board. And one of the things that he did that I think was really smart is once we had our design team for this production in place, rather than, I think, kind of traditionally going through and saying we're going to rehearse and then we're going to have a week of tech and we're going to try to figure out all this shit.
Right.
It was we are going to bring the designers in, and there was no expectation of product. It was, we are going to have like a weekend session where we are just going to try things out and kind of start to get a feel of what's possible, so we can start to get a sense of what is the skin that this play will live in. And it was kind of amazing because he and I were just kind of sitting there and letting our projection designer and our lighting designer, who have worked together a lot and worked together very well, just kind of play. And then they would come up with some of these pictures that you saw. And immediately we would be going, whoa, that's what we want. That's great. And sometimes we would say, no, that's not working. That's not working. But that's amazing. That's amazing. And I think what that allowed us to do is go into rehearsals with a sense of what this is going to look like, which I think then started to impact how we were going to stage it and how we were going to get it on its feet. And then even as part of the rehearsal process, it's sometimes easy to forget that for the most part, the actors can't see all the things that you and I are oohing and ahhing about because it's behind them.
Right.
So we had to have some rehearsals where the actors would say, can we run this cue to cue and let us sit in the audience so we can see what we are reacting to?
Yeah.
And then they were blown away, right? Like Mathias Brinda, who plays the lead in the show, was sitting just going, wow, that's what that looks like. Wow. You know, they were having the same reaction that all of us do because the designers have really done such incredible work.
How many different projectors do you think there are?
I think that they're only using one.
Really?
I think
because there's all these
using
different surfaces, and it's kind of this is over there, but not over there. But this,
and then the surfaces act as provide depth, and because they're like scrims, as the projection hits, it also will like refract and go off to the side, which gives
really
it
cool.
a ton of depth.
You know how in the movie Jaws, the shark never worked right when they were making it? Did you have a thing that was like the shark that, like, what is that thing that, like, we'll get it. It'll work.
The battle scenes. The battle scenes took a lot because it was a combination of having to time the cues and the actors and fight choreography, and it was like a whole bunch of things that had to line up, particularly the final battle scene.
Yeah.
There's a lot that has to line up for that scene to kind of click.
They're shoving boxes across the stage, and it's stage combat. I'm not a gamer, but it really did feel like a video game, like a cool video game. And periodically scores would appear, and you could hear the crowd reacting to that and the avatars and all that stuff. Are you a gamer? Are you into that world?
So I am not so much into that virtual world. I, at this point, play like Nintendo Switch with my son,
right,
and enjoy it. And we play Zelda, and I love that sort of thing. But I'm not like a virtual gamer,
right?
So one of the parts of the process, as we were starting to hear back from, I think part of the hesitancy was, as we were workshopping this, theaters, you know, if you're talking to them about set, they know what they're stepping into. Lights, they know what they're stepping into. You know, these things that they do all the time, they know kind of what to budget for that or what it's going to take.
Right.
But they really had no idea what to do for video game design.
Yeah.
And so we met with a friend of my niece who is a trans video game designer. And took him out to lunch, and he had read the script, and he obviously very much is a gamer and has a history of not only gaming, but using video games as like installation art and kind of mixed medium.
Very cool.
And so he was a perfect person to speak with. And he started asking us questions in like a language that Fidel and I were looking at each other going, I don't quite know the answer to what you're asking.
Right.
And so because he was asking us, well, what is it you want from the game? Do you want it to be this, or this? And we said, I don't know if we know the answers to those questions. So then he was like, let's reverse engineer this. And he started asking questions working in reverse. And he finally got to a point where he said, okay, I now have a grasp on what it is you want. This is doable. It can be done quickly, and it can be done on the cheap. And these are all the magic words we needed to hear.
I love on the cheap. I love on the cheap better than cheap on its own. Yes. On the cheap is more effective for some reason.
Yes.
It's very, it's very scrappy. which I like.
Yeah.
Did that designer bring any other insights related to the trans part of the story, having that be part of who they are?
Yes, and was willing to give some notes, and then we brought this designer in for the same workshop that we were doing as a consultant, and because we had people who were well versed in projection and lighting, and then he would sit there and say, okay, but if we're thinking of this in terms of a video game, it might look more like this, or it might look more like this.
Right.
So we got all of those people in the room together to figure out kind of the look of the play.
I thought you did a great job of letting the audience know what was at stake in the game, but you don't have to follow every little thing, but you felt it. You knew kind of, because I'm not super into that world. What made you want to tell this story? What made you want to write about a trans tween?
So I think early on, I had read and really loved Ready Player One.
Right.
And I was actually, have you read it?
No, but I've seen the Steven Spielberg movie. And isn't it interesting that it was a big hit, but it also feels like it's not one of the ones that they play in the summertime, in the park or whatever.
I thought the movie, I think often, the movie is disappointing after you read. I think the movie missed some of what I think the book did really well.
Right.
And one of the things that I think appears in both, but is to me more interesting in the book, is that there's a character who presents as a white male in this gaming world. And then we find out that the character is actually a black lesbian woman.
Right.
And I was interested in that. And it's almost like a footnote in the story.
Right.
And so I started thinking, as family members of mine are non-binary, trans, lesbian, queer, I started thinking about this as, a potential story. I didn't have the story worked out, but it was just kind of beginnings and seeds. And I was interested in it, and spoke with my niece again, whose partner is trans and is very much a gamer, and said, okay, these are kind of the seeds that I'm thinking, is this something that would work? And she said, if you look at games like this style of open world gaming where people get to choose their identity, you're going to find large pockets of people who are trans, queer, non-binary, who the appeal is they get to choose their identity with no questions asked. Right.
They don't need to get an avatar that looks exactly like what they would look like.
No, you can do whatever you want.
You can be whoever you want to be.
And so then that idea started percolating, and by the time things really clicked into place quickly, in part by necessity, because I am tenured faculty at Glendale Community College.
Right, I read that.
A few years ago, I had gone on sabbatical, and my sabbatical happened to line up with the height of COVID. And so during my sabbatical, I was supposed to write a new play. Really, during my sabbatical, I ended up homeschooling my kids and my nephew, and there was no time for me to write a play because that was a full-time job. And when I got back, I told them, I don't have a play. I wrote a new class, which is also something I was supposed to do, but I don't have the play. And they said, well, we need the script. We need a script. We can give you like a couple months buffer time, but we need something. Otherwise, we have to dock your pay. And that was a non-starter.
Right.
So I said, well, I'm going to get you something. And then coincidentally, Jose Luis Valenzuela, the artistic director at the Latino Theater Company, called me and had an opportunity for a commission and then said, would you be interested in writing a multi-generational play? And I said, hell yes, I am. And I'm double dipping. This one play is going to count for both.
Right.
And so at this point, I pitched the idea. They liked it. And then we were rolling. And I actually got the first draft of the play in their hands before they had the contract to me.
Well done.
So I remember emailing them saying, I've got the draft, send me the contract, I will sign it, and the draft is yours. So it moved quickly.
I love it. I love stories about writers making deadlines. That's exciting to me as a writer. From the time you started it till now, trans young people are more in the news than ever. I mean, it was never not an issue, but it's become like a real hot button. And I feel so bad for these young people that they're being used in this way politically. And what was it like to watch your story become more and more relevant and almost I don't know, perilously relevant. Like almost like, oh shit, this is what we're dealing with.
In many ways, I wish it had become less relevant.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, trans kids, I think, and particularly trans kids of color, are wearing big targets on their back and are being dehumanized regularly. And unfortunately, this is not a new story in history. We've seen this happen time and again. And I actually think that when this happens, it's really important that we tell stories that humanize the people who are being dehumanized.
Yeah.
Because I think that the more groups of people get dehumanized and stir up a sense of xenophobia, it just becomes easier to treat them as subhuman. And that's obviously dangerous and sad. So on the one hand, I think that the play is very timely right now. I wish it was less timely. I wish it was.
Did the companies where you were workshopping it and now where you're doing it, was it a positive or a negative that it was so of the moment, or were they always committed to it?
So it was a little bit of both. We were workshopping it at Children's Theater at a time when they were transitioning from one artistic director who was retiring to another. They have passed on the play. They've said that it's for budgetary reasons. I don't know if that's how valid that is. To their credit, the Latino Theater Company, because I was starting to get nervous that this might be
too hot to handle,
too much. But their commitment was unwavering. In fact, they said it's particularly because this is getting hot that we have to do this play.
We have to do it. Right? Yeah. It feels like valor. It has like this valor to it. Like, we're here. We're telling the story. Talk to me about your lead, because I understand she's been part of this story from the beginning. And she's so special. She's
wonderful. We met her the first workshop in Minneapolis. So I wrote really, really rough first draft, got notes, and then cleaned it up a little bit. And when we got to a point where we felt like, okay, we think it's worth workshopping, we were going to Minneapolis, and I said, I think it's really important for casting that we get a trans actor in this role. We can be flexible in some other areas, but this is really, really important. And everybody agreed. So this wasn't a battle that I had to have. Everybody said, yes, we need a trans actor. They had somebody in mind, and they said, well, we've had this actor who's done some work for us, and I think she'd be a really good fit. And she was. So when I first met Mathias, I think that she was, I want to say 11.
Wow.
And very talented, but also shy, right? Like being in a room of actors who were much more experienced and older. It took her a little while to come out of her shell, and she did. And the next workshop was out in LA, and they were willing to fly her out for the workshop. We did a second workshop in Minneapolis and then another one in Atlanta. And she's been there each part of the journey. And what's really been great is the jumps that I've seen her make, because she's a different person now. She's got more chops.
Growing up.
Yeah, totally. And she's now comfortable enough where, as we were in rehearsal, she started calling me out, and she'd be like, this line sounds like somebody old wrote it. I was like, well, somebody old wrote it.
Yeah.
And at one point I remember she told me a moment when she yells something at her brother.
Yeah.
She's like, Gabe, this sounds very 2 months ago.
It's very 2 months ago.
This is not what I would say now. And
we don't say cringe anymore. Cringe is cringe. So figure out.
And so I told her, tell me what would be said. And then she did it. And, it's been landing much better than what I would have written.
I'm always amazed when performers feel and look one way on stage, and then you see them even sometimes in the curtain call and they look like a different person. But I saw her posing for photos on the red carpet, and I was like, she looked like a young woman. Like, I have no idea how old this person is. now.
She's 14.
14.
She's 14.
She had this poise, and I was like, oh, she's 20. No, she's 11. I don't know. Like, it was like one of those things. She's very, very special. Has she talked to you about what it's meant for her to be part of this project? Because the character is dealing with probably things that she deals with in her life.
Yeah, it's come up sometimes, and we've really tried to be as gentle as we can be. And luckily we have other queer and non-binary actors as part of the cast. And I think they've been more than willing to kind of, I don't know what the right wording is, shield her when it's needed. And then she's willing to tell them, I don't need to be shielded, when she doesn't need it.
Right.
And that's most of the time.
Yeah.
There were some times where, like one of the scenes, for example, when they fight the Medusa character.
Yeah.
And in very early drafts of the play, this was much more standardly written, like they're going into a creepy cave and hearing creepy noises. And then it changed, and it was like, this is actually going to look like a locker room. And instead of hearing the hissing of snakes, we're going to hear the gossip of teens. And that's going to be, I think, scarier than the hissing of snakes. And one of the workshops.
I'm sorry, I want to hang on that scene 1 second. Is that the scene where the projections show like social media posts of bullying? Yes. It's so effective because it connects you to the real world, but the characters aren't discussing it or anything, but it's like wallpaper of social media posts bullying trans kids and saying horrible things. Things that we see every day, and it was very effective, and it is scarier than a cave with a snake or whatever, right?
I think so.
Very powerful, and I would think for the young people seeing it especially. And
early on in workshops, one of the actors said, I get dramaturgically, I get the point of the scene. I'm wondering if we should tone it down because it's rapid fire, but if you're actually paying attention to the things that are being said, some of them are really awful. And as we got to the point where we were rehearsing for production, it was actually Mathias who said, this scene has to hurt. If it's going to work, it has to hurt. And so we shouldn't have kid gloves on.
That's the whole play to me.
It has to hurt. Yeah.
The whole play to me had that. Yeah. Felt like that. I had a crying headache afterwards. You know how when you get a crying headache, you're like, why do I have that? Oh, I cried for 2 hours. Anyway, all to say is very beautiful. I love the character of Menno, the brother. Is I saying his name right?
Yes.
I don't know why he moves me so much. Talk to me about Menno and what you love about that character, what you're trying to do with that character.
I think that Memo might have the most profound arc out of anybody in the play. And
by the end, if I just looked at him, I started crying. You could just be standing there. I'd be like, I'm a mess.
Because in my mind, as I started getting a feel for what the story was, it felt clear to me that the father is not in the virtual world. I mean, the actor doubles as the Medusa actor, but the character of the father is not in the virtual world except for in flashbacks. And so it felt to me that to me, Memo has always felt like a bridge that gets us from Desi to Papa.
Yeah. And Desi is the main character.
Yeah, Desi is the main character. Yeah. Because Memo can be the kind of eyes at the beginning of the play for somebody who's new to this world and doesn't know what's going on. He's very flippant in his remarks. He's dismissive. He's, he has a few moments where he really steps in it.
Yeah.
And then I think he really gets some redemption, and then he has to earn it.
Yes.
And I think to me that's why. And then I think at the very last scene, some of the lessons that I think that they've learned on this journey get echoed. So Beatles has one of my favorite moments of the play is when Beatles the Bard, scolds Memo for referring to Desi as his brother. And there's this thing, where it says, well, your grief is a choice. The only thing you've lost is a pronoun.
Right. Your grief is a choice. The play was full of lines like that just land in their simplicity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to me, when he echoes that back at the end of the play, I feel like it's earned. I feel like he's gone on the journey to the point where he can now say that it feels like he believes it.
Yeah, he's earned it. You've watched him go through all those stages.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. You have a wonderful dog puppet. Was it always going to be a puppet? How did you approach that?
The dog was always going to be a puppet. At least that's how I wrote it. And we didn't know how the puppet was going to look. And so I had kind of thought that this would be like a puppet that would just fit on somebody's hand.
Right.
And so the actual puppet that we use in the play was a late addition, because we get to the point where we're in the space and the actor who does the puppeteering is like, I need to have a puppet at some point soon to figure this out.
Right.
And we started contacting people, and it turns out that one of the people who's working at the theater, who's I think like an intern and doing different things, said, well, I can make puppets. And then she made this puppet, and it was kind of amazing.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love the puppet is one of my favorite parts of the play. It's
very cool. It reminded me a little bit of the cow in Into the Woods that toured in the Amundsen several years ago. That was so winning. The villain has a unique name. I forget the name.
Smallfish.
Smallfish. I knew it was like something in the shark. Smallfish. Yeah. Yes. But we see the other side of the villain. We see the reality, and just the image of that human being was like a gut punch, because you're like, oh, I know that guy. I've been that guy. We all know that person, right? Talk to me about how you thought about the villain and showing both sides of them.
So initially, so my writing process is such that I have to overwrite. I always have to overwrite. My first drafts are always longer, and then I cut. And part of this is because especially for this play, I had to figure out the world. Like, what is this virtual world?
Right.
Because I thought for a minute, do I just want to copy a game? And then I thought, no, I think I need to just make up the game. But I needed to figure out what that was. And initially, early on in the script, Smallfish to me always felt a bit androgynous. And so his name was androgynous too. So early on in the script, his name would be spelled SM*LL*F***SH. So there was no vowels, and people could never know what his name actually was.
Right.
And I think this was being me too stuck in my head, but I had started reading, because I was diving into the 90s. I started reading Kurt Cobain's writings. And in his writings, I don't know if you know this, but Nirvana was very nearly called Smellfish.
No, I didn't know that.
In part because Kurt Cobain, and this is a line in one of his songs, was very adamant about not eating animals, but made an exception for fish. So there's a lyric in one of his songs that said, it's okay to eat fish because they don't have any feelings. So part of this was like a callback to Smellfish, which was one of the original bands of the original potential names of Nirvana, and one was Smallfish, like the irony of him being this very big fish in this pond that is, the virtual world. We scrapped that because the joke the mileage wasn't worth the amount of time that it was taking. But I've always thought that has felt true to me, to be a part of who the character is.
Right.
And also in early drafts, Smallfish refers to Desi as Don Quixote and himself as Pinocchio, because she's trapped in an imaginary world and he just wants to be a real boy. And again, these things got cut, but to me, they've always been a part of how I've understood the character.
Right.
And actually, the ending and the image that you're talking about of seeing Smallfish differently was a very late addition, because early on it had just been that Desi kills him like some of the other monsters in the play, but it wasn't quite feeling like it was hitting the right note. So we started playing with, what if this, what if this, what if this, and then we landed on what ends up being how that final battle resolves. And I think it is better.
Yes, it's very powerful, because I think, I don't know, I think it connects to something real and human, and that performer was wonderful, and and all of those different things. There's one line where Desi says, "Oh, I hear about the news. I watch the news." There's an acknowledgement that this is a topic that's talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And maybe she says, "I have nightmares about it," or whatever. Talk about that moment and why it was important to sort of nod to what's real without getting into it too much.
I feel like there's a shorthand to this because of the moment in time that we are living in, where having her say, "I've seen the news and it gives me nightmares."
Yeah.
I don't know that we need, I think we all understand.
That's
I've seen the news too. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to get, I never wanted this play to feel like a soapbox, because I feel like then it loses some of its punch. To me, this play has to be about this girl and her journey. And then I think I'm comfortable letting an audience member do some of that puzzling and piecing it back together. And so to me, it always felt like if I go further with this, I run the risk of getting on a soapbox. And I think people tune out when you get on a soapbox.
Yeah.
I think they lean in when you're giving them something that is human. And I think that the play is deeply human.
And it has a lot of these moments that are very simple and graceful. And the line is very simple, something about grief, something about loss, something about courage. I don't know. It's not belabored. There was this trust that we're going to get it, or that the author, the actors are going to convey it. And it just lands. I don't know. It was such a lesson of economy to me. So
thank you.
Well done on that part.
Thank you.
You say you teach college. You also are a father. I feel so bad for young people. I feel like we're leaving them this horrible world. Are they going to be okay? What do you observe about young people from your vantage point? You have a much closer vantage point than I do.
I think the young people are really going to be okay. I mean, one of the questions that I've been asked about this play is, how do I think young people are going to or do I need to worry about young people and how they will respond to a story that centers a trans tween? And by and large, I think the young people get it. I think the young people have been on board. I actually think that the challenge in many ways is convincing their parents and grandparents. And so early on, as I was writing this play, I made the mistake of referring to it as a children's play. And Evelina Fernandez, who is also has a play coming up that's brilliant at Latino Theater Company and is one of the founding members there, corrected me and said, "This is not a children's play. It's a multi-generational play." And I really took that to heart, because what I would love is if families come together to see this play, and if, the 12-year-old is seeing it through one set of eyes, and, her 40-year-old father is seeing it through another pair of eyes, and probably seeing themselves in different characters, and grabbing an ice cream afterwards and being able to talk it through, that would be, to me, that's a success. That's a big win. I think the kids are all right, though, by and large.
I'm glad to hear it.
The kids that I teach have far fewer hangups, and my kids have far fewer hangups about queer culture, about people who are trans, than I think adults do.
Yeah.
And so I'm far less concerned about them, actually.
Do you remember the first time you were aware that there are trans people? I remember mine because it was I look back on it and it's kind of remarkable. I came to LA in 1986 to be in a musical theater workshop. And one of the other students in it had a trans mother. Well, it was the father had transitioned and was now Jane. And my friend just called them Jane, and everyone was cool with it. And I look back and I'm like, we were cool. That was I don't remember anyone making any jokes or being weird about it. Jane was wonderful. And that was 1986. And I was just like, I just thought about that. And I was like, that wasn't a big deal. That was just Jane. Do you remember meeting a trans person or knowing about that issue in a way? I
don't know if I can pinpoint a first moment, but an impactful moment. A preschool that we sent all three of my kids to was up here in Altadena. It burned down in the fire, and they're trying to get it going again in Monrovia. But we fell in love with this place because it was run by people who were activists, and they had shifted their focus because I think the idea had been trying to change the hearts and minds of adults is often harder than trying to shape the hearts and minds of kids. And so they started this preschool where like diversity and acceptance and, championing people of different backgrounds, ethnicities, colors, queer families, trans families. This was all just baked into what was happening on a day-to-day basis. I think kind of like you're saying, it wasn't like a pedagogical focus. It was we are all here. We are gardening together. We are harvesting our food together. We are singing together. We are dancing together. There were no desks. And every day I would pick my kids up and they were filthy because they would have been rolling in the dirt and the mud all day and making rivers. Right. And making friends with people who didn't look like them and people from different cultures and people who were queer. And to me, so that might not be the first, but I think that might have been one of the more impactful because you start to see that when you do that, it's exactly like you're saying. This is Jane and this is, these people and they're people just like us. And you remove, I think, a lot of the hesitancy.
What are we so afraid of? They're just people trying to be who they are. That's all it is.
It really is.
There's a wonderful flashback scene in your play where we learn something about the name, where Desi comes from, and that it's a name that the mother thinks of as female and the father thinks of as male. And in a way, it sort of makes sense. Oh, this was always going to be this person. There was something lovely about it. And I think people have stories like that in their own lives where it's like, oh, yeah, that feels right. We need to not get up get upset about something that is right. It's the way it is. I want to give you a shout out for including Black Cat, one of my favorite Janet Jackson songs, which did go to number 1, I believe. Talk to me about the 90s music, the character of, is it Beatles? Beatles kind of has this flamboyant, costumed, kind of drag-esque kind of sensibility, kind of fabulous, larger than life, vocally as well. Talk to me about where that character comes from and the performance as well.
I would love to take credit for all of the song choices, but I can't, and I don't want to actually. There were some songs that I've mentioned specifically in the script. There were other songs that I had mentioned for Beatles in the script, and the ones we ended up with are better. And one of the things I've learned as a writer is that sometimes I should not let my words get in the way of the play. And that's going
to be the quote that every episode I pull a quote. I should not let my words get in the way of the play. That's very deep, actually. I love it.
But I mean, when I love, this is going to seem very, I think, I don't know, obvious. I really, really love working with smart actors. Yeah. And I have a cast full of really, really smart actors who push. And if I'm going to really push to have smart actors, then I need to listen. And Khalif Gillette, who plays Beatles the Bard, came into the process late, was replacing another actor, and his style is very different. And we ran with it, and I mean, can really, really sing. Yeah. And so we started playing with songs because he was saying, the songs that are here just aren't working for me. And I said, okay, so what would work? And he said, well, a lot of what we're hearing is like 90s rock, and it's like grunge, and it's like anger. And he's like, I would love to do like 90s kind of queer pop-ish, like you said, kind of drag queen feel. And I said, let's go with it. So then it became I really think this song fits here. And most of the time he'd be like, yes, it does. Let's run with that. So it was really collaborative and letting the actor do what he really, really does well.
And what were the other songs? There was Black Cat, but there were other ones where I'm like, oh, I know this song. I was singing along.
There's a Prince rendition of Nothing Compares to You.
Yes.
That was, then remade by Sinead O'Connor. There was
like this club anthem. I can't remember.
Yeah, there was a club
like
there, and I'm blanking on what is it?
Club anthem from the 90s. Like
then that's interrupted in the Medusa scene.
Yeah,
it's I'm blanking on the name of it. I know the melody, but I'm blanking on the name of the song.
Oh, it's all right. But it was like, it took me back. I was like, oh yes. I get this.
And every time I think from beat one, Beatles is getting people attached to this character immediately. As soon as they see him, I think people are on board with who he is, and it's really been great.
Yeah. I found this piece so powerful and so emotional. You must be seeing those reactions among people. In other words, it's not just like a nice intellectual comedy or whatever. It just feels like big emotions. Are you sensing that, or am I like an outlier?
No, I'm sensing that.
And was that always the intention?
That was always the intention. And then, I've cried many times writing this play. I've had these emotions, and sometimes I wonder, like, is this just because it's my baby and I'm so attached to it? But
right.
I think people have been having this reaction to the play. People were having this reaction in the readings, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I remember we had one of the readings that we had in Minneapolis that I think got the biggest emotional response of all the workshops. There was a gentleman sitting like near the back who looked like a Hell's Angel. I mean, he had like the leather vest on, the long hair, and he raised his hand to talk in the talk back. And part of me is going, oh, I hope that this person's not going to say something.
Right.
I was stereotyping.
Of course.
And the man raised his hand and he said, your play made me cry at least 4 times. And I think it's more than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I echo that from the Hell's Angel. I know that you've written other plays and had them produced before. Yeah. What's new about this one for you? What's different? Were the other ones as emotional in this way?
My other plays are darker.
Yeah.
This is the first play where I knew from moment one that the goal was to make this multi-generational. And a lot of my writing in the past has been darker, and I think it's kind of been baggage that I've had to work through, to be honest.
Yeah.
I promised I have 2 teens and a 10-year-old, and I had promised the teens years ago that they would be able to come to an opening of one of my plays, because when my other plays, when they had gone up, were not age appropriate.
Right.
Yeah, this didn't sit well with them. So I had made this promise, and so what's different about this one is that this is me keeping that promise, because it's written with the intention that it is for them, that they are welcome, and they are actually kind of the target audience for this play.
How have they reacted?
Well, my oldest, I was expecting to get stacks of notes.
Right.
But my oldest said, I went into this thinking it was going to be good, and I really underestimated it. My middle child didn't want us to invite her friends and their families to the show because she was pretty sure it was going to suck. But after
now she wants a discount code.
Yeah,
it's
now
she wants
cool
a group
with
code.
us inviting her friends and their families. I think with my middle child especially, it's like there really is a lot of skepticism that her father could do anything that's noteworthy. So I think that's quite a big pat on the back.
Yeah, that's a big win. Yeah.
My youngest, who is 10, was like kind of unsure, because we have been saying, we're going to go to opening and it's going to be great. And he's like, wait, are you an actor in this? And I said, no, I wrote it. He's like, wait, what does that mean? And he's like, are we going to see a movie? I mean, he's seen plays before, but for whatever reason it was. And then I told him, well, it's about like a video game. He's like, do I get to play video games? So there was like a lot. And then it was really kind of cool to see him go, oh, I get it. I get what this is. And it was actually really cute because the little glasses that they use when the very first time they switch over to the virtual world and they turn on the light up glasses, and there's a really cool effect. the stage managers had gotten me a pair as a gift because when they brought those in, the director and I, Fidel and I, were both like, those are really cool. Those are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So they bought us a pair, and my son saw them, and he was like, oh, my God, I need those. I need those. So I let him wear them during the performance, but the deal was he couldn't turn them on until after. And it was kind of killing him. Because I was like, you're going to distract the actors, like, leave them off until the end.
Yeah.
But he's been very excited to have those and show those off.
Yeah. I also loved the father character in the piece, and that you kind of give him his due, his story. It's not like only about the young people. Like, you feel his pain and his, like, he's fully realized, and that performer is wonderful. Talk to me about the father.
Yes. Richard Azurdia plays the father, and he's great. He adds a lot of humor, I think, to the show, but he also... It was important to me that character never be the villain.
Right.
I think he's at odds with his children, particularly with Desi. But I think he's doing his best. I think as we learn throughout the play, he's had his own journey and his own grief and his own, like, he's just trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
And I've never thought that he's like a villain. He's not like a bad person. And I think that's actually what Desi needs to see in order to get to the point that she can start to imagine him differently.
Yeah.
And so I think having that role have depth and have some surprise was really, really important to making this thing stick together.
Yeah. I am taking a playwriting class, and I love it. I've just written my first play, and I'm going to ask you for advice in a little bit. But I was telling my playwriting teacher, Bernardo Cubria. Do you happen to know Bernardo?
No.
Okay.
No.
Anyway, I was telling him all about the show. He has young people. He has a 4-year-old. I would think 4 might be too young, but what are the ages that you're seeing come?
We're recommending for 10 and older, and
Right
I would
on.
say some kids younger than 10, I think
Yeah.
it can work. There, I mean, it does have a pretty heavy dose of grief.
Yeah.
And so I think people will know their own kids.
Right.
So if they're a little younger than that, I think it could work.
Okay.
4 might have difficulty sitting in a theater for 90 minutes, just no matter what's up there.
Exactly.
But one of the things that the theater is doing that I think is groundbreaking is that for the Saturday matinee performances, they're offering free childcare.
I mean, come on. That's amazing.
Which to me, that's a game changer, right? Because if you're talking about the goal really has been to make this play as accessible as possible. So we have free performances for schools. Like I said, we had 300 students there today. We have discounted tickets on different days.
$10 Thursdays. I just saw $10 Thursdays because I'm going to rally my playwriting people.
We have free childcare available on Saturday shows. So, I mean, just even if you're doing the math, if we're trying to get people to come to the theater, largely people who have never felt that theater is for them.
Yeah.
Then you're adding, the cost of tickets and the cost of a babysitter, and like it starts to add up. So in my mind, having that free childcare as an option is an absolute game changer.
Yeah,
and I'm hoping that means that it's that more people who don't usually get to the theater can come to the theater.
Yeah, I'm going to tell everyone about it. I am doing my first reading in a small theater in a few weeks, like 50 seats. Any advice?
Yes, I do have advice. I would say, well, at least in terms of my process, I know that I always overwrite. So I'm always looking for what can I cut.
Right.
And so I would say to me, the first time I hear a play, what I'm trying to decipher is what is the meat and what's the fat.
Yeah.
And I would say, again, for my process is such that I'm going to have a lot of fat in that first draft. In fact, the first time we workshopped this play, literally 10 minutes before we were supposed to read it, Jose Luis Valenzuela, the artistic director at Latino Theater Company, comes up and says, I know what you need to do. You have to cut this scene. And I was saying, wait, you cut the whole scene? Like now? And he says, well, yes, because dramatically, like it's not actually, he's like, it's an interesting scene, but it doesn't give us any new ground that's not covered elsewhere. I think you need to cut it. And he's like, and if you cut it now, you can hear it without it. And you could say, did I miss that or did I not?
Wow. That's a
So
big
we cut
swing.
it. It is a big swing. So we cut it, and I didn't miss it, so it's never made its way back.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're going into your first reading, it would really be good to say, what's the meat and what's the fat?
Before the reading, or to listen to it as it plays?
Listen as you're hearing it.
Okay.
What are the moments that feel like meat?
Yeah. Because I do think it's too long right now, but I don't know if I want to hear it and see what. There's a lot of jokes in it. There's a lot of, funny stuff, and maybe some of it's repetitive or we don't need it all. But okay, this is good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
And listen to it, and then try to be as honest with yourself as you can. I know that there were a lot of jokes that I thought were going to work for this play that either fizzled or just were not worth the amount of time they were taking to set up the joke.
Yeah.
Where I was like, it's not actually helping me tell the story. And so those are on the cutting board.
Yeah. I saw in your bio that you like Lego.
I love Lego.
I'm a fan, but I'm more of a fan from when I was a kid, although I did build a Lego typewriter a couple of years ago. Yeah. And that took several days, me and a friend, and it's beautiful. It turned out great. But you do the hardcore, like, modern Lego sets.
I do. In fact, the gifts that I gave to casts, crew, and designers were all each their own Lego set that my son and I built. So you
custom made a set of Legos for each person.
Yeah. So like some of the people got it looks like an arcade game, and the arcade opens and there's like a man cave inside the arcade game. A couple people got like an old Game Boy that's made of Legos that has the game cartridge has the Level Up flyer on it, so it looks like you're playing Level Up.
Oh my gosh! So they were already made. They weren't for them to assemble. That you made.
No, I made them, or my son and I made them. We assembled them.
Are there photos of them on Instagram?
There are photos of some, because one of the biggest one that I made
these things
was for the company. And so I'm a member of the Circle of Imaginistas, the writers group.
I saw that. And I like Imaginistas because it reminds me of Imagineers, like a Disney.
Yes, yes. And so I made like a theater that has all of the founding company members as little Lego people, and then also has each of the writers in the writers circle. And then each of the writers is like holding something or doing something that is like iconic of their play. So like the character that I made of me has like VR goggles on, is like walking around the theater. And another Oliver Mayer, who was one of my mentors at USC and had his play go up last year, is holding a violin because that's central to this. So it ended up being this really cool display of all of us in the theater.
How long does something like that take?
It took me a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Right on. Do you have your like Lego area in your house where you just go do your thing?
My son loves Lego, so it's really kind of everywhere. There's not like one area; they're everywhere.
And they're not cheap, Legos.
No, they're not cheap.
Oh, yeah.
I just took my son and my oldest and my niece and nephew to Legoland, and this was like a belated birthday gift for my son.
Right.
And he had gotten like a bunch of birthday money, and he really just wanted to buy like a massive $300 Lego set, and so he spent his birthday money on this set that is huge. It's like 4,000 pieces.
I mean, when I was a kid, there was a very limited amount of what.
Yeah.
There were limited colors, and then just to watch it over the years become more and more people in Star Wars. And
absolutely, yeah.
What's the thing you built that you're like, I can't believe I pulled that off?
I mean, it might be that theater.
That theater sounds amazing. Is it online anywhere? Did you say it was on Instagram or somewhere?
I think that they took some photos and videos, and I think that they might be. If it's not on Instagram, I think that they're planning to do it.
Do something. That sounds amazing. I bet people.
But I can send you some pictures of the theater.
I want to see that. That sounds really cool. Yeah. I have one more question for you, but before that, I want you to tell everyone how they can see the show. If you want to promote your Instagram or anything like that, just help us get the word out.
Sure. So come see Level Up.
It's so good, you guys. Go see it.
We are running at this point Thursday and Friday evenings, Saturday and Sunday 2:00 shows. You can get tickets at latinotheaterco.org. And there are also student matinee performances that are not listed on the website, but we are actively reaching out to schools. So if you are somebody who works for a school or knows people that work for a school of students that should see this, the theater is offering free tickets. The only thing that they need to do is get people to the theater. So if they can get a bus or whatever, take the train to the theater, the tickets are covered. And today, like we had 300 kids there, and they had a really wild time. I mean, they were waiting. You would have thought that it looked to me like videos you see of the Beatles walking through a crowd. These kids were waiting at the door because they needed to get autographs of all of the performers that they just saw.
They were so into it. I can imagine. I can imagine. Like, I remember, like, I grew up in a little town in Arizona, but I can imagine, like, I remember going to see this high school play of Dirty Work at the Crossroads, and it so captured my imagination, and it was done in a little cafeteria with the basketball court hanging down with amateur high school actors, and yet I was transported. So something like this that is so good and has all the visuals and everything, I bet it blows their mind. I bet they lose their mind.
They were a great audience today. Yeah. They were like I said, the energy for the opening night crowd was really, really good. And I was, wondering, how is this group of young people? Like, is it going to be quiet? It was not quiet. So the very first scene when we step into the virtual world and we see Desi's character with a dress and wings, they erupted. I mean, they were loud and they were there for it. So it was really great.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful play. All right, here's my final question. Why do you write plays?
It's a good question. I write plays because I've always been interested in telling stories. And to me, what theater provides that a lot of other mediums don't is that collaboration. So this stopped being my play a long time ago. I've told Mathias this is now her play as well. It's Fidel's play. Because all of these people who have worked on it are leaving their fingerprints all over it. And I prefer that. I prefer the communal feel of theater. I also personally think that, I love watching movies, but if you give me a play that hits, it's going to hit harder than a movie that hits almost always. There's just something about being in the room with people and seeing it happen and feeling it happen that feels different than a movie. And I also love that my style as a writer is surreal at times, and I love to play with nonlinear storytelling, and I love to play with things that I don't need to look real. I just need them to feel real. And in theater, I can do that. And some of the most powerful theater that I've seen has moments like that, where it doesn't look realistic, but it feels really, really real.
Yeah.
Like the death scene in Rent, right? Where you get the character who walks and the cape just gets longer and longer. I've always thought that's gorgeous, but I don't know that it works as well in a movie.
Right.
And I think theater allows you to do that.
You could do anything.
You can do that. And correct. Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Well, congratulations on your show. I hope everyone goes to see it. I'm probably going to come back and see it again and bring some friends. So
please do, and say hi if you see me.
I definitely will. All right. Thank you so much, Gabe.
All right. Have a good night.
Thanks again to Gabe Rivas Gomez. Go see his play, Level Up. It is so good. All right, so this happened. I'm going to talk about the thing that's freshest on my mind. Last night, I went and saw Project Hail Mary for the second time with my friend Matt at AMC, who has discounts on Wednesday nights. I did not know that. I thought it was just Tuesdays. So anyway, that was a pleasant surprise. We do come to that place for magic. It's my second time seeing it, and I liked it even more the second time. It's really beautiful. I found it very deep and soulful. And I don't know if I'm following all the science or all of that stuff, but just emotionally, I just thought it was beautiful and soulful. And Ryan Gosling is just a deep, clever, inventive, winning actor, and the Rocky of it all was amazing. And I'm glad it's doing so well. I thought it was, it really stirred me the second time, especially. All right, that's enough for this week. I'm going to give a shout out to Oscar Rosario for mixing my episodes. My theme music is by Mark Daniels for Placement Music. Catch you next time on Dennis Anyone. Bye.
From lashes for days with the viral Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara to lift and color from their brilliant eye brightener, Thrive Cosmetics is the go-to for amplifying everyday looks. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.